Live from New York, we're coming on the air with breaking news about an exceptionally brutal day on Wall Street. President Trump's tariffs sparking a huge sell-off today, sending all three major markets plunging. The trading day there, you're hearing the bell ringing. It's closing. The free fall comes after the president's announcement yesterday to slap reciprocal tariffs on global trading partners. Let's look at the final numbers now on Wall Street. The Dow losing almost a little over 4% of its value. The S&P 500 losing about 5%. The NASDAQ down about 6%. Let's go to Christine Romans right now, who is at the New York Stock Exchange. Christine, we've seen bad days on Wall Street before that in the final hour, suddenly the buying opportunities and everything seems okay. This isn't that.
This is not that. In fact, you did not get any of that late day buying, people trying to find a bargain. They don't think there are any bargains here, at least right now. 1,700 points almost on the Dow Industrials, almost 5% on the S&P 500. Those are big one-day moves. In fact, when you look at the move in this market today, we haven't seen a day like this in the S&P and the NASDAQ since March, early 2020. Remember what was happening then? That was COVID, when the entire global economy was shutting down. So that was the last time we saw a really tough day like that. Dow had a bad day back in 2022. That was because of really sky-high inflation and the worries there. So that gives you a sense of just the dread among investors about what the president's tariff regime will mean for these companies and the big global supply chains that they depend on. Another average I like to look at is called the Russell 2000. That is 2,000 smaller companies. These are really the backbone of the American economy. That one down even worse, almost 7% at one point, Lester.
Yeah, they'll get it together. They'll figure it out. And basically, it's a scary time because the president has a lot of power, as we see. And the unfortunate part is that it took a president like this to go to an area and in a direction that we weren't expecting, because we'd all been lulled to sleep with the country pretty much succumbing to the Democratic agenda and the Democratic way of doing things. And when Roe v. Wade was rescinded right in the beginning of Biden's term, or 2021-ish, everybody's like freaking out, like, oh my God, because it's just these things that the Democrats make you believe will always be. And then when you're shaken, and in just a short amount of time, they're not the norm, and they're not as stable as you thought they were. And the bedrock of what your life was, or part of it anyway, you're like, oh my God, they made me think that I was actually sleeping, or should have been sleeping, more comfortably than I was. The front door was unlocked and I had no idea. The Democrats are wrong for that, for being so hypocritical when it comes to being so hard on the other party, you know. And the Republicans are the same, but I just think that I always believed what they were saying as a younger person. I remember in my 20s and being involved, in politics and through my union. And I was thinking, wow, the Republicans are the worst. And they make you, even your fellow union members, black, Hispanic, white ones, they really feel that the that the Republicans hate black people. And it's like, yeah, you're sitting here buying this, and then you're with a party who gets their opportunity to get into power, and they ride the backs of blacks to get there, and then they never specifically do anything for them. And it's like, but then they try to now mush you in there and say, hey, we can't just do it for you, because that wouldn't be right, because we got that, I believe every group, ethnic or otherwise, in this country that considers themselves a group with a plight, with a dream, with a plan for themselves, to get better, to be whatever it is they're trying to achieve. I totally believe that they need their own feelings and directives addressed individually, not collectively. You do not stick a bunch of people in. No way, ain't right. And that's what the Democrats want to do. That's a good way to get a whole bunch of little straw grassroots, everybody, from the descendants of the slaves to anybody else who you can catch in that net, and just piece them all together. because they're at the bottom and on the left of whatever you're doing anyway. And you get those votes, which are significant and which usually do help put you over the top. But things are going to be different if Donald Trump's plan, agenda, Project 2025, whatever you guys end up calling it, turns out to not be as bad as you told us it would be. And that's where I think a lot of this elevation in the voice, I could be wrong. But if I am, at the very worst, the worst thing that can happen is the racial wealth gap will close because trillions of dollars are being lost and it don't belong to black people. So that it has to be closing in some way. Maybe we should take some sort of gauge of where we are prior to Trump and after Trump. And maybe they can lose even more trillions of dollars and the wealth gap still don't close, which means we have a bigger problem than I thought we had to begin with. What do you do to close the racial wealth gap? What do you do? I mean, if we can't gain money and resources and economics to catch up, then they lose trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, and that don't close it. What does it take to close it? What are we going to do?
All right, Christine, I'll ask you to stand by while I turn to our senior White House correspondent, Gabe Gutierrez. He's in Doral, Florida, where the president is just about to land. Gabe, we're getting some mixed messaging from the White House on all this.
Yeah, that's right, Lester. For the last day or so, White House officials have been insisting that this change in tariff policy is not a negotiation. And yet, a short time ago, President Trump telling reporters that he wants the rest of the world to try and make a deal. Now, as you said, he is heading here.
Trying to make a deal. I kind of like that he understands that he is in a position to do that. I wish everyone who had any kind of negotiating power in any capacity would realize that. Say, wait a minute, we got negotiating power. And you tell them, hey, you're running for office, and they don't hear from you. And they don't hear from you. And then they call you, hey, what's going on? You're not, no. Because you need to call me and make a deal if you want my support. I like that. You're in a position of power right now. And I do believe that China is nipping at our heels in such a way that it's dangerous. The U.S. aid thing, a big part of that is Africa and our influence in Africa and our access to those resources in Africa, because that's what China's going after. But from word on the street is China is a whole lot more nice to the nations in Africa, and they're building towns and communities and infrastructure over there that wasn't happening from Europe and the United States. So even though they might have the resources being sucked out of the land, but they're getting something back in the form of their lives are becoming better, in their opinion, and that's a blessing, as opposed to just having your stuff stolen and then stealing from the taxpayers with USA and just giving pennies back to those people. Wherever that company that touches down over there, taking those resources, they should be responsible for taking care of those people in that land. And it can't be just marginal. It should be, those people should be living amongst some of the best in the world. Their lives should look like the west coast of Southern California. They should have a Beverly Hills. They should have a Pacific Palisades prior to the fires. They should have Rancho Palos Verdes. They should have that in Africa, all over the place at the minimum, because all that the world is relying on that continent for a lot of resources, and the people over there are not looked at as the controllers of that wealth. And they're not looked at because they have to deal with France and everybody else, Russia and China and the United States. And if everybody would get their hand out of Africa's pocket, then they'd be fine. But because it's never going to happen, Trump is doing what he got to do on the global scale. And not looking like the Democrats, like we got to support the world. We can't support the world. No, we can't. We be trying to do that because then you feel when you're supporting everybody in the world, you can tell everybody in the world what to do. But it gets to the point where you're spread so thin and all your decisions ain't gonna mesh well with other people, and you got your hand in too many pots. You gotta pull them irons back out the fire. It's too much going on as a country.
To Florida, to his Doral Golf Club, but as he departed Washington, he did speak to reporters a short time ago. Here's what he said.
The markets are going to boom, the stock is going to boom, the country is going to boom, and the rest of the world wants to see, is there any way they can make a deal? They've taken advantage of us for many, many years. For many years, we've been at the wrong side of the ball, and I'll tell you what, I think it's going to be unbelievable. The thing that people have to talk about, we're up almost to $7 trillion of investment coming into our country, and you'll see how it's going to turn out. Our country's going to boom.
The president there in his role as cheerleader-in-chief, trying to calm those markets. But Lester, yesterday I spoke to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and I asked him what he would tell Americans who are worried that they may pay more in the short term. He said that they weren't really sure what the price effects will be, essentially adding to this uncertainty. But White House officials say that this is all part of their...
I think that's the biggest part, is that it is uncertainty. And he's making drastic changes that weren't made before. I mean, that makes sense. He's going in a way that no one else ever has, and it's completely against what the Democrats would do, and it's significantly against what the Republicans would do. So yeah, it's some uncertainty, and then you got these folks over here saying the things they're saying. It doesn't help. So I totally understand that. I think he should be given the chance, though. Whether you agree or not, he should be given the opportunity. He should be given that shot. There's absolutely no way you can just elect a guy president. Tell him, oh, no, you can't do nothing. You can't do anything. You're the president, but you can't touch nothing. You just hang in there until the Democrats win again, and then they'll take it from there. No, that's not the way it should go. And I feel that way as a Democrat of the majority of my life. And independent now, which I still feel the same way I did when I was never. I still feel I'm a part of a United States government that is overall using trickery, but to the point of where now they're getting mean about it because one side takes a little advantage or a little edge, and then the other side goes, oh, they did that? Oh, that's messed up. Oh, we wouldn't have done that to them. Okay, we'll get them. And then they, now it's getting a little chippy. And I don't like that part because it's at the expense of the American people. The American people are the ones who are being hurt and the ones being tricked and turned against each other and all that stuff. There's no reason why a person of any ethnic group or immigration status can't fight as hard as they feel they need to get what they feel they need. But when the government finds a way to turn us against each other, in the ways that they do, it's unfortunate. It'd be better if it could be dealt with in a different way. And as citizens, we all have a responsibility to be civil, at least. I mean, we can have our opinions, but we do understand we have to voice ourselves in the ballot box. You can demonstrate and anything that you choose to go out there and do, however you go out there and choose to do it, as long as you understand the ramifications of that kind of behavior. As long as you understand that, it's all good. You can go out there as an adult, a registered voter, a United States citizen, and do your thing.
Their plan, the realignment of global trade, and to trust in Trump. Lester.
All right, thanks. Let me go back to you. Christine Romans again at the New York Stock Exchange. Christine, what does tomorrow and the day, next day, and the day after that look like here, assuming that these tariffs are laid in place?
Well, today the stock market lost $2 trillion in value. So you heard the president talk about the trillions will be coming in. Today, $2 trillion lost. And the big question is, will companies feel like there is certainty to make their investments? Will they be able to grow and move forward? Or are they going to be in a defensive crouch here and not spending money? That's when you start to see, a recession, potentially. Some economists are saying, others are saying that we could skirt a recession. But certainly a lot of questions here about what this means for business spending and what it means for hiring in the months ahead.
Yeah.
If we can skirt a recession and not hit a recession, tighten up our belts, things get kind of rough, but not have a full recession. Or even if we do, we've had recessions before, but come out of this better. Come out of this in a different way. Come out of this with the tariffs on an equal footing across the board for everybody. It's just how it goes from now on. Somebody say, hey, I want to trade with you. Okay, what you want to do? Whatever you said, we setting it back. You're going to, I mean, that makes sense to me. And if that is the new law of the land and the way things go, and if it's put out there long enough and we can see that it has a potential, and obviously it's not going to destroy the country, because they're talking about we might be able to even skirt a recession. So that doesn't sound like country ending kind of stuff. And I think it should be talked about, in more reasonable terms, so that we can, think about it, talk about it, and not freak out about it, because you're not going to get anywhere, stressed out. But if you think about it and be like, yeah, you know what? Hey, and especially the 401ks and all of those things, there's no way, especially as volatile as a stock market can be, that I never agreed with it, that a retirement account should be tied to it. It can be beneficial if everything's going good, and everybody who wouldn't want that upside, but the downside is just as devastating. So why in the heck would anybody who don't know what the market might be like when they hit that retirement age, that's just so unfair. I think that Social Security and anything else should be unattached and never tied to a stock market or whether the market's doing good or bad. And people who say, oh, you don't understand how markets work, then markets need to work differently. I don't have no problem with me or Trump or anybody else being told they don't know how the markets work, because the markets only work that way because you guys have something to do with them being working that way. And maybe that's why we're in the situation we're in, with the deficit being as high as it is and the economy being bad. Because whatever Biden did and now Trump coming in, it's only getting worse, not better. And I would reasonably expect it to get worse before it got better, if improvement is being made. It's just not going to, no one can just come in and just make things get better with no pain or no struggle, just all of a sudden. And that doesn't happen. We can't expect that to happen. Being realistic though, if it's a little bit of a downturn, but not a full recession, or even if it becomes a recession, not a really, really bad recession, but then we come out of it with a different lease on the rest of the world. And if we're going to maintain our position as a world leader, if that's so important to everybody in the United States, then there's got to be a little pain for the gain. You can't expect us to just be on top, just whooping ass, and never, ever have to take a moment, a season off, to kind of kick back and regenerate and do things a little differently, especially with the duopoly. And for the first time in our lifetimes, somebody come in and don't play ball with them. You know what I mean? You playing ping pong with this guy and he just grabbed the ball and you're like, well, come on, give me the ball. And he's like, no. That's what Trump is doing. Then what are you doing here? Play the game the way we play. No, he don't want to. He want to play a new way. And I want to see how it goes. I just think that it can only be educational, and it can only produce growth in everybody involved.
And Christine, it's been interesting to listen all day to what's coming from different countries, the language, the talk about retaliation, or in some cases, the lack of talk about retaliation. Is that the other big shoe to drop here as to what other countries will do in response to this?
Absolutely, because we have seen this before in a trade war. When one party fires a shot, another fires a shot back, and that could mean that U.S. products could be targeted. Really important exports that the U.S. has. I'm thinking like pork and soybeans and so many tech services, and a lot of these places where the U.S. does run a big surplus. Those could be rich targets for some of these countries to try to prove a point that the U.S. isn't in here alone, that it is a global trading system.
All right, Gabe, let me ask you about how the White House has handled this. It seems that they have left at least some opening that this might have been a response in the market, but at the same time expressing this faith that this will cause companies to build and sell in America.
Yeah, that's right, Lester, and that is all part of the president's plan. And White House officials have been stressing that they're...
But it won't work unless the entire the United States government is on board. If these people know that the Democrats oppose it and the Democrats are like, this is the dumbest thing in the world and there's no way this is going to work, then yeah, that's not going to work for Trump. It takes away the teeth in it. But the way the government is going right now, it looks like the Republicans are riding a big wave, and they might be in power for a couple of administrations. It looks like, who knows? But if that's the case, then yeah, people in the business world better start listening, and they better move accordingly. If I get ready to buy another car, and a car from Japan or China or Korea or wherever else they come from costs about $10,000 to $12,000 more because of these tariffs, I'm buying an American car. It's just what you got to do. What are you gonna do? Oh, I want to buy a Toyota. I want to buy a Toyota. You might want to buy a Toyota, but if it's gonna cost you more than that Ford, you might be better off right now buying that Ford. I mean, or you can say, well, I think a Toyota is a more quality car. Is it $12,000 more quality? Because if it is, then you're going to be going that route. But it's just something that we need to kind of chill on, let them figure it out. This is a 4-year thing that we're going to have to deal with Trump. I think it's going to expose some things that are going to be beneficial. I just do. It's because it's going to I like learning. I like new stuff. I like change. I don't think that anything that's going to pop up is going to be insurmountable that we won't be able to deal with. We'll be fine.
Goal is to get American manufacturing back here in the U.S. They say that businesses have been decimated over the last several decades. And Lester, this is something that President Trump was speaking about decades ago before he entered politics, speaking about this very thing. He repeatedly says that tariff is his favorite word in the dictionary, and the White House keeps reiterating that this is something that he promised during the campaign, and they view it as a promise kept. Now, of course, a lot remains to be seen how this all plays out, but so far, the president shows no signs of backing off this policy, Lester.
Gabe Gutierrez, thank you very much, and Christine Romans as well. That concludes this NBC News.
Yeah, that's the way it is. You tell somebody you're going to do something, and you still get voted into office, and then the other party who lost is telling you, don't do that. You're going to ruin everything. It's like, well, of course, you don't believe what this man is doing. I get it. But I really believe that we should be reasonable about this. I think we should stop saying things like what he's doing is illegal when he doesn't have to take everything back to the Senate or back to Congress when they're in the majority, and assumingly they're going to vote in his favor. But he doesn't have to put it to a vote unless those Republicans come to him and say, hey, you got to put that to a vote. We ain't letting you do that. And then that's when check and balances come in. But if they're rolling with him, then it's all good. Ain't nothing you can do. I know Cory Booker and that little thing he did the other. What a waste of fucking time. Who want to stand up there with it depends on for 25 hours for nothing? What did he accomplish? He didn't accomplish anything. When they have the opportunity to do something, they don't. Cory Booker is like, man, I don't even want to go there. I'm gonna just say this: we don't have any black senators or anybody in Congress who's really advocating for us, who's really advocating for black people, who just like that's what they do, and everybody in Congress respect them for that because they know that person's locked in on what they own. None of them. They all been shaken off of that and on to something else. And when you see them taking pictures and around, you just see blackness, and you just see what is the biggest illusion in a photo that you could see, where they all gather around each other, and it just is a horrible thing that they have people believing that they're really out there fighting for us when they're not. It's really sad and upsetting. I think we deserve better, and I think the only way we're going to get that is to do it for ourselves. And I think in a lot of areas we just need to let this stuff that hurt us and harmed us, the Department of Education at the federal level, with National Guardsmen walking, and that was the state levels, but the federal Department of Education hasn't done anything for black people. Our test scores haven't flourished. They haven't soared. Our kids haven't college rates just through the roof. We even, and the other thing that I disagree about us as black people is HBCUs started because we couldn't go to school with the white kids. We couldn't go to Harvard. We couldn't go to Yale. We couldn't go to these universities. And it's not easy for us to go to them now. But we had to build our own colleges. And now we'll deny every black person who applies for a black college does not get in. But we do take Asians and whites and Hispanics and other people go to our universities. And I just think that that's something that is ours because we built that because we had to. And every person sitting down at a HBCU who isn't black is taking a seat from a black person. That's a black person that could have been college educated, who over our history wasn't even allowed to go to college. So I just I feel a certain kind of way about that. And I wouldn't have a problem with Hispanics having their own universities or Asians having their own universities, and you could respect that because it would give that people the opportunity to have whatever kind of education or academics available in that school that they choose, and no one could say anything about it. If you do anything in there and there's a problem with it, it's going to be dealt with in that people, in that culture, and not for the government to be involved in. I just think it's a line should be drawn, and I just appreciate from afar the people who do take their children's education that seriously, that they die for it, that they don't play that shit, because they understand that the quality and the standard of life that their child has depends on that. All that goes into what I'm talking about with this tariffs and these economics. These are the people who get to make the rules. These are the people who have the trillions of dollars in there. Anybody losing whatever it is they're losing in this and accumulated trillions of dollars, it'll come back. It'll go away again and it'll come back. It swings both ways. It can't always be up. We're going through change, and hopefully it's a change that we will learn something out of. Maybe we won't benefit, and it won't be the first time. We go through a lot of change and we don't benefit from it. The last administration, we went through a lot of change. The amount of immigrants that came into this country is a huge change and a burden on this country. You can overextend yourself, but when you're an administration like we had, they don't think so. This guy, he got his way of going. He don't think so. They think so. I say let him drive the bus. Let's see where we're going. But I also say we need to get up and out of the streets and make an appointment. We need to get some Zoom calls going with Trump. We need to get some folks to get over there in some sort of a congregation and talk to him. A delegation of a congregation, and go in there and talk to him. Holler at him, be like, hey, man, explain this. How's this going to affect black people? And he go answer. And if he feel like he harming us, I'm telling you, he might come up with something, pledge something that's going to step us up. He sound like he trying to be fair. Let's hold him to it. Let's see. Let's not assume and listen to his enemy about him. Of course, they're going to have the worst things to say. Let's hear it out of his own mouth. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you on the next Black Popcorn. If you made it this far, then hopefully you enjoyed the video. I really would appreciate and do appreciate the support. Hit the subscribe button, and thank you for being a part of the Black Popcorn community.